My name is Eleni Tampaki. I work for the European Commission since 2008, and I work for the unit dealing with financial services and consumer redress. I will try to give you an overview of what we do in the field of financial education, and as you will see, I will talk a bit more generally about consumer financial education and not focus exclusively on investor education that I understand is more the focus of today's workshop. Um, the first thing to say is that, as you very well know, education falls within the competence of member states, and that includes, of course, financial education. There is no harmonized strategy and there is no common definition of financial education at EU level, at least from a European Commission perspective. That means that what we do as European Commission is complement member states' initiatives, undertaking ad hoc projects on specialized and targeted subjects. Apart from education, we think that it is very important that we also work on advice and other aspects that are that are necessary for consumer empowerment in financial services, such as advice or conflict of interest. And you've probably seen that there is a trend in recent EU legislation towards standardized information, towards regulating other relevant subjects such as advice. And I have here some examples of recent legislation that touch upon these issues as well. We know that financial products are complex for consumers, and we also know that markets do not always perform in an optimal way. And this is something that is reflected as well in our research. So, for example, our consumer markets monitoring survey has indicated that financial services do not perform well, and that in particular for investment products, private pensions and securities, they have the worst position across a number of markets for 3 consecutive years, which is of course not the greatest news. Similarly, when we look at what consumers know and how they feel about financial services, the results are not very optimistic either. I have here some examples. So, from our behavioral economic studies, we've seen that people struggle to make choices, and that what we sometimes have in mind, that people very rationally make decisions, that they look at all the options is of course very far from how they make decisions in financial services. We have also seen from Eurobarometer surveys that more than half of EU consumers would like to see financial products being simplified, and that the majority of them just picks the product that is offered to them first without really shopping around. And when it comes to financial and arithmetic skills, I think the EU average is a bit lower than the research in the Netherlands, and we see that more than half of EU consumers are not able to answer to relatively simple questions. For example, they couldn't calculate how much a 6% is of a €50,000 loan. Taking all that into account, and against the background that I described at the beginning, we as Commission have been taking a number of specific and targeted measures, as I said at the beginning. So I will present today 3 of them that I think capture a broad picture of what we call financial advice and financial education, and you will see that I will also cover awareness raising activities and capacity building activities. So the first project that was actually concluded earlier this year was the training of non-profit entities that provide financial advice to consumers. And our goal was to build their capacity to provide better advice in a more sustainable manner. When I say financial advice here, I mean general financial advice. So we trained these people that do not recommend specific products or specific providers, but those that rather guide consumers into how to approach financial services, how to avoid pitfalls and risks. And when I say non-profit entities, with this project we covered consumer associations, we covered debt advice agencies, family advice bureau, and some public authorities as well. These were the majority of the entities covered. So with this project, we went local, which was a challenge for us. We went to each member state and we did the training in the language of the member state. You have here the coverage of 27 member states because the project started before Croatia's accession to the EU. The program of the training that lasted 2 days was divided, let's say, in two parts. The first part was more or less identical amongst all member states. And there we covered the basics, an introduction to financial services. We covered soft and communication skills, how to approach consumers, how to provide advice, and we also covered redress. What do you do when you have a problem with something that you bought? The second part of the training program was more tailored to the actual needs of the member states. So there we relied a lot on the advice of our lead trainers, and the program was tailored based on the needs that they identified in the member state. Overall, there was a wide range of topics covered, but we saw that in most member states, the strong priority areas were credit and over-indebtedness. Overall, we trained 500 non-profit advisors, which represented more or less 350 different entities. To undertake the courses, of course, it was not the Commission going to the member states and giving the course, but we engaged national experts. We had lead trainers that were very usually accompanied by experts specialized in specific products and services. And what we also did, we tried to evaluate the impact of the courses. And this we did by asking both trainers and participants. And for participants, we asked them to assess the course right after its conclusion. And we also sent them a questionnaire 6 months after the course to see how much they were able to apply in practice in their daily work. So here I have included a couple of charts. Of course, we are talking about self-assessment, so how participants felt themselves, and the results were quite positive. We saw that at least they felt that they knew more and that what we provided was relevant to the work, which is already a good first step. So, as I said, this was a pilot project. It started about 3 years ago and it was concluded earlier this year. I will now move on to the awareness-raising activity that we undertook last year, and this was an information campaign on consumer credit. There we picked 4 member states: Cyprus, Spain, Malta, and Ireland. We targeted consumers aged between 18 and 35 years old, namely consumers that are very likely to take out credit for the first time, be it students, young professionals, young parents, etc. The purpose was, of course, to raise their awareness when they take out credit, to encourage them to look for their rights when they enter into credit agreements, rights that are granted to them by the Consumer Credit Directive. Prior to launching the campaign, we also did a small survey in these 4 member states where we precisely asked them not only what they knew, but how they felt when how they felt about credit. And we saw that a majority of them did not feel informed about the rights and did not feel confident to choose the right credit product. So that was a good basis of our campaign. You see here one of the visuals that we used, the slogan that we used, and the traffic light system of Stop, Think, Act. So we really wanted to encourage consumers to take some time and think and not rush into a credit agreement. To promote this message, we used a variety of tools. The visual identity that you saw, we bought media space in print and online publication. We tried to disseminate the message by engaging stakeholders. We developed a dedicated web page, and we also did kick-off events in these 4 member states where the Commissioner for Consumer Affairs and the relevant national minister participated. Now, in parallel to this campaign, we ran an independent evaluation. We hired an external contractor to look at the impact and the reach of the campaign. There were 5 specific criteria against which they measured the impact. And as well, they used a variety of means to identify what was the reach of the campaign, such as focus groups, online surveys, interviews with stakeholders, or media analysis. The results were considered quite positive. The evaluation also made a number of recommendations on how to better tailor the messages and on the need to engage more the institutions that actually provide credit. So based on the results and on the evaluation, we decided to extend the campaign to cover another 3 member states and, of course, an improved version of the campaign this time. And next year, we will be launching it in another 3 member states. The last project that I will present today is the Consumer Classroom. The Consumer Classroom is a website that is dedicated exclusively to teachers. It's a website that we launched in March 2013, and it includes a library of education resources that come from across the EU and that are available in all EU languages. The website includes a number of tools and features that teachers can use in order to build lessons and also share experiences with other teachers. For example, they can have a personalized profile, they can have tools to build their lessons, and there is also a forum to discuss with teachers within their member state and across the EU. The website is called Consumer Classroom, so that means that it covers a wide range of consumer topics, one of which is financial literacy. So if my numbers are correct, for the moment we have about 1,000 resources in the tool, and about 200 of them relate to financial literacy. Since the launch, there are about 500,000 visits to the website, and we have more or less 19,000 registered users, most of them being teachers. So this was all from my side. Maybe before concluding, to also say that as Commission we also have the practice of providing sponsorship, patronage, to events organized at national level by stakeholders. So based on specific criteria, our commissioners can receive an invitation from stakeholders to sponsor their event. And that is not financial support, that is more the chance to use the logo, to say that the event is endorsed by the Commission, and sometimes to also have an official attending and presenting in the event.